see the world through other people's eyes. Now, empathy is a quality of character that can change the world.
Hi, it's Edwin Rutsch from the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, and I'm here in dialogue today with Blair Ryan. And Blair has an organization called the Empathy Factory. So we wanted to kind of talk about that and talk about how we can go about building a culture of empathy. And Ryan, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit more, say a little bit more about yourself? And
Absolutely, and Edwin, I'll very kindly correct you on my name. It's actually Blair Ryan. I will say don't worry about it. You're not the first to make the mistake. I have the 2 or 3 first names going on, so it's been confused before. But at any rate, that is my name, and the Empathy Factory is our organization here, and we're in Halifax, Nova Scotia, in Canada. I don't know where most of your viewers, listeners would come from, Edwin, but we're up here on the east coast of Canada, trying to make a difference over here. The Empathy Factory, a little bit about the Empathy Factory, I guess, is a neat timing in terms of this conversation. Is tomorrow, March 2nd, is actually our 1-year anniversary of sorts, I suppose. Our 1-year anniversary, the first time we ever worked with any students, and that is what we do. We work with children roughly age 8 to about 17. We teach them all about empathy and show them tangible ways that they can use it to make a difference, but also to feel good, make other people feel good. And it's been an adventure these last 364 days, but all very well worth it and great results.
You've been doing it for a year now, you're saying?
Yeah, so the organization itself, we founded, we began in October of 2010. So that's certainly more than a year ago. But the first, 5-6 months were a lot of planning, organization stuff, getting the right people in place to run and to go with it. And then it was about March 2nd last year where we got in front of our first group of 24 grade 6 students here and started the journey.
Oh, great. Maybe I'll just go back a little bit. I have the capacity to show some web pages on the screen. So I'm just showing your Facebook page right now. And I see a couple of shoes. Is that perhaps symbolic of something?
Where are you?
You don't know? I thought it was like your webpage, Blair J. Ryan, or...
Oh, sure. Oh, okay, my personal Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, okay.
Okay.
Okay. That's right. Yeah, my flip-flops. That's groom and bride. I'm going to be a groom in 9 days. March 10th, I am finally taking the plunge. Is that what they say? No, marrying my best friend, I think is a better way to put that. And actually, it's neat. My best friend is Stephanie Schutten, also the co-founder of the Empathy Factory, and she's serving as the chair of our board right now. Still very much connected to us, the founders, only a year into it. So she's leading that, and I'm kind of the feet on the street. But yeah, I keep looking at the picture. I probably should be looking at you here, Edwin. But on March 10th, we're heading down to Tampa, so a little closer to you. We're going to get on a cruise ship and take our vows and so on.
Oh, well,
pretty exciting time.
Congratulations. And I thought maybe the shoes were like a symbol of standing in someone else's shoes. And then you also have a Facebook page for the Empathy Factory, which I'm showing, and shows kind of where you're located. And then I'm going to show here your web page for the Empathy Factory. So it's theempathyfactory.com.
Which I will just take a minute to brag about. We're very, very happy that the web page is actually up. It's been a work in progress, I guess. It's been about, most of that year we've been working on this, and it just launched maybe 3 days ago. So we finally got it up and running for the public to see. So if you're watching this, do log on to empathyfactory.com and check it out. We're very proud.
Okay, so kind of what I wanted to explore is how can we go about building a culture of empathy, and it's you're in the education system. You're dealing with young young children, I believe. And so it's like,
Yeah.
how can we go about, teaching empathy? And just wondering what kind of ideas you have about that, and kind of what your approach and is.
Well, sure. So I guess I'll start a little bit with my background. My background is not in education, and my background is not in psychology or social and emotional intelligence or any of that stuff. My background is in coaching, and my background is in philanthropy and not for profit. That's what my career's been. But I basically saw the opportunity to get to these children while they were still young and fresh and malleable and impressionable. So we thought, why don't we go to these grade 4 and grade 6 and grade 8 classes and teach the children what empathy is all about, and what we found. And I don't know if this is the case where you are, Edwin, but in a grade 8 class or a grade 6 class, empathy is still a fairly foreign word. It's generally fairly new. So we're teaching them about it. We're teaching them, definitions. So we're teaching them, giving them examples, tangible examples that they can relate to in their life. I love I talk of, really high level example of empathy is I love the one when you're watching TV and whether you're watching Seinfeld or Glee or whatever, and every one of those shows has the embarrassing neighbor or so on who's constantly doing silly things or stupid things, and they'll do something and it's totally embarrassing, and you wish that you could just grab them and say, don't do that. I find that personally I get so embarrassed for these people. I get hot and I turn red and I turn the channel, and the kids can all really relate to that, and they get it. They say, okay, that's really feeling what someone else is feeling. So we use examples like that to put them in a position where they can understand it. And then from there, it's one thing to get up in front of a class and talk and to lecture and to show videos and which is all good. But we actually challenge them. We say, kids, whatever age, we've worked with 9-year-old grade 4s and we've worked with 17-year-old grade 12s. We challenge them. We say, what can you do? How can you extend your empathy? So you can be compassionate and give 25 cents to a homeless person, and that's great, and it makes their day, and so on and so forth. But there are 2,200 homeless people in Nova Scotia. How can we help them all, right? So we try to get them to think, how can we extend it? How can we make a bigger difference? How can we, really use our empathy and make the world a better place? So we challenge them to come up with ideas, and then with any group, whether it's a class of 25 grade 6s or whether it's a whole school, we're doing a whole school. The size always varies, but you'll get different ideas from everyone, and then we pick one with the help of the teachers and some of the volunteers. We'll pick an idea, a philanthropic idea for to, like I said, to make the world a better place. We then work on that project with the students, so that idea can be a fundraiser. That idea can be an advocacy campaign. That idea can be it's limited only by their creativity and their imagination. And then we work through it with them and give them the opportunity, really empower them to extend their empathy and to prove to themselves, but to prove to others that they can make a difference with empathy. So it's a pretty neat program, and we've had a fair bit of success so far.
So this is kind of in a workshop format. Is it in the schools or more kind of a private extracurricular?
Yeah. So the we've worked with 1,300 children so far in this last year, and 1,200 of them have been essentially in schools. They've invited us into the schools, and we work with a class or a group or a number of students over a period of 6 weeks. It's roughly 6 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks. It will depend on what project we move forward on. But yeah, it's been mostly through the schools. I mean, one of our medium-term goals is to get it to be part of the regular curriculum here in Nova Scotia, and then with success possibly across Canada. But right now, it's a lot of our volunteers spending time walking, from classroom to classroom, working with these kids, kind of 1 on 25, and doing it that way. We do have a few kind of private was the word you used, but we have kind of extracurricular things. We have a summer camp called Camp Empathy. We have, right now we're working with an organization out here called Oxford Learning, and we're doing an after school kind of program that you can sign up for. So we're trying to basically go to wherever the children are, and wherever we can get a hold of them and kind of plant our seeds.
So for myself, the larger vision is building a culture of empathy. So it's really transforming society, and there's some initiatives too for doing that in the schools. For example, Ashoka.org, they're doing an initiative of promoting empathy in the schools. Kind of what are you seeing is the larger vision? Is it to transform schools and education to be more empathic, or how are you coming at this?
Yeah, so I mean, the larger vision, our larger vision is to create a whole generation of Nova Scotian youth who have been introduced to empathy, who've been able and encouraged and empowered by us to put that into practice, to experience what it feels like to use empathy to do good. So we want to have a whole generation of children, so that when there are CEOs and there are doctors, nurses, and politicians, that they'll be leading and living with empathy. So that's kind of our vision here. My personal vision, and the one that you wouldn't find on the website under the About Us, my personal vision is to I really believe in some of the the experiential learning that we offer these children. I really believe in that as a way of learning, kind of to a degree catering to what the students need. I put myself back in grade 6, and I think about how awful it was to sit and listen and just learn all day. And I wonder how much more would I have learned had we been out doing this and this project, and it would have been steered by me, and I would have been doing this and that. And I think that's a better way for a lot of children to learn. So I'd really like to see our model in the education system, where the kids get to not just, like I said, not just see the word on the whiteboard, empathy, and here's the definition, but to go out and to experience it, to be encouraged, every day to use their, emotions, to talk about their emotions, to be okay with that. We're still definitely in a society where someone like me is not expected to be so open about their feelings. Generally, the boys. Mm-hmm. So to create a whole culture and a generation where it's okay to talk about feelings, and it's okay to really be in touch, and it's okay to understand and to help others, and so on. So there are a bunch of barriers to be broken down, certainly, but possible. It's all very possible, and that's why we being the Empathy Factory and people like you, Edwin, fight the good fight. We're trying to get the word out there, and we will make a difference.
Well, what are you seeing as the barriers then to, promoting empathy? What kind of barriers are you coming up against?
Well, I'll tell you, here in Nova Scotia, the barriers have been few in terms of getting into schools and getting in front of children. That's not the problem. Teachers and administration at schools are generally pretty accepting and in fact quite excited of what we offer. So we offer it meets their outcomes. They want global citizens, and they want problem solving. They want all that. So they're excited in that respect. They're also excited to be able to offer their students another way to learn. So that's not so much the problem. And in fact, we're not really ready, I wouldn't say, to move across the country, though. That's in the goal set. But I've gotten calls from just about someone from just about every province in Canada saying, you got to come here, you got to come here. So that's not the barrier, which is really exciting, because if there just was no market for it, that would be a different story. I guess it's making people aware, and getting comfortable, talking about empathy, and I'm sure everyone you've ever asked would answer the same way. There's funding issues. The Empathy Factory started essentially from my savings in the beginning, and that was quickly dwindled. So now we spend more time than anyone would really like to, talking to funders and looking for sponsors and that kind of thing, where it'd be really nice if we could just move forward. But such is reality, and that's okay. But so that's those are kind of our biggest barriers right now.
Yeah, so it sounded like one of the barriers was just getting people to understand what empathy is, was the one you kind of mentioned before. It's just like, what is empathy, kind of get an understanding of empathy.
Well, that's it. You find if you go, some of my experience in terms of seeking funding and seeking support comes from health charities. I worked for the Canadian Liver Foundation for a while, and then the Canadian Cancer Society. If you go to the government or you go to potential sponsors talking about cancer statistics or liver statistics and liver disease and so on, it's much more tangible to them. So many people die of cancer, and so many people need liver transplants and that kind of thing. And you can write that down on your whiteboard or on a sticky note and really understand it. But you talk about empathy, which is much more just less tangible, and it's obscure to some people to think that people need more or should be living with empathy and this and that. So it's among friends, I often say it's a little harder for us to get money, being a young organization, but because no one's dying of empathy, which I guess you and I could probably debate. But no one's dying of empathy, so it's a little harder sell, I guess, to get people to buy in. Like I said, not schools so much, but the public in general.
Yeah, so the empathy is a bit more ethereal and emotional, and kind of harder to put your finger on, and maybe not so clear. There's not such clear problems that it's solving, or might seem that way.
Well, that's right. Again, you and I, like I said, being really into it, and empathy is what we think about all the time. I could give you a lot of theories on how empathy could make a real dent in bullying and all kinds. So certainly more empathy is beneficial. It's just harder to make a measurable statement about that.
So what are your next steps now with your program? It says here 93,000 students, 439 schools. Is that where you've been, or what?
No, I wish. No, that's the so 93,630 students. That's how many were registered students in Nova Scotia this year. 439 schools potential for us to visit, and 8 school boards, and one goal is to give everyone empathy and give them access to it and help them understand. But we've been in 27 schools, so certainly a long way from the 439, but we've worked with, like I said, 1,300 students, and which is for us right now, as being as lean and young as we are, it's a great percentage of those numbers. So those are kind of that's the vision. That's where we want to be, and when we can get close to that, and we can start to celebrate our numbers in that regard, we can look at can we move into some other provinces, or can we offer this in the U.S. and so on. So that's what those numbers represent there.
Are you familiar with the Ashoka Empathy Initiative, and have you applied for their competition?
I tell you what, actually, Edwin, you maybe not necessarily on purpose, but you teach me about all of these things through your Facebook and so on. So I have heard of it. It's among the very many competitions and grants and so on that are out there that essentially, unfortunately, fight for my time. And I love what Ashoka does and stands for as an organization on their own. And I love the competition, or whatever you want to call it. So it's on the list. It's on the apply soon list. So we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
You can't do it all. There's so much to do. It's a startup, and limited energy and time, and
that's really it.
I know that from experience. So we're talking about empathy. I was wondering what's kind of your working definition that you use for empathy.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good question, and I actually get asked that a lot, and I don't have the one that I could just rhyme off to you, but I'll basically explain what I when I'm in a class, depending on the age group. So you can teach it a little bit differently depending on how old the students are. But basically, I talk about it's your ability to, enter into someone else's feelings, to really understand what they're feeling, but to actually, experience them at the same time. But I always say that, that you ask a kid, in grade 5, what's empathy? And if they have any answer, it's generally, well, it's like sympathy, right? And so you've probably heard this one, and it's not really. That kind of starts there. It starts along the lines of sympathy, but empathy to me is taking that feeling, that ability to understand that, if someone stubbed their toe, that hurts, and I feel bad. That's sympathy. Is to say, okay, now what can I do about it? I know that hurts, and I know that I can help, and I know that if I were that person, I'd want some help. I want a bag of ice for my sore toe, or I want someone to just pat me on the back and say, don't worry, we all do it, or to crack a joke to distract me from the pain. So empathy is your ability to not just understand and enter into someone's feelings, but also to feel inclined, I suppose, to help out if you can. If they're feeling bad, make them feel good. If they're feeling good, keep that good feeling going. Mm-hmm. So that's my definition of empathy, and again, you probably have seen 40 or 50 different ones that they're all more or less the same, but that's what we work mm-hmm. with here.
Yeah, it's really that kind of that action component that it seems like that's really what you're kind of focused on. It's like, how do you take? I call that empathic action, but
exactly. So the thought that if we can get these children, these students to understand and to connect to empathy that way, to when they hear the word empathy, which I think is going to become, and I hope it becomes a more commonly used word in English. When they hear it, they don't just think, oh, that's when I feel embarrassed for the guy on TV. They think, that's when I feel something and I want to do something. So it leads to the feeling of inspiration to actually act. And that's really what I want the verbal association to be when they hear the word empathy.
Well, I have a definition that I'd like to share. It's something that would probably be a little harder to explain to children, but I see empathy as 4 parts. The first part is self-empathy, which is related to mindfulness and self-awareness. The second part is, as we're kind of more connected to ourselves, that we, through mirror neurons, we have a mirrored empathy, or sometimes called emotional empathy or affective empathy, and that's as I'm watching you, that I can see the movements in your face and your body, and those get reflected through mirror neurons. Right. So I can, and you're smiling, I can feel the smile. I'm smiling inside. When you smile, the whole world smiles with you, literally. So. Right. And then the third part is perspective taking, which is being able to imagine yourself in the other person's situation. So seeing the world as if I was in that situation, what would the world look like? And then the fourth part, it would be empathic action, which is when you've connected and with someone, you've seen where they are, how do you take action? What is the action that you take? So that's kind of the basic framework I've been operating from, and
that's really neat. Our definitions are very similar. When I look at it, breaking yours down and comparing it to what I did, I wrote those down. The self-empathy that you started with, which is, I guess, where we differ a little bit, and certainly we don't differ in that I disagree. It's just not something that we, I guess, take the time necessarily to focus on for a very long time. But I really like the mirror neurons, and as you said, it's difficult to teach to maybe a 12-year-old the idea of mirror neurons. But basically, I show them a bunch of people's faces and say, what's that person feeling? And they're really good at it. They're really good at identifying, well, she's sad, but, not sad because she's watching a movie, sad because maybe somebody died, and it's a little deeper kind of, and they have these really profound answers for what they're seeing. So that's the mirror neurons, and we actually do exercises in perspective taking. We get them to draw what would so-and-so across the room be seeing in front of them right now. If you were sitting in their chair, looking through their eyes, what do they see? So some neat little little things there. And I think it's, maybe your viewers would find this interesting, and I haven't studied it, and I will go back and remind you that I'm not, I have a minor in psychology, but I'm by no means a psychologist. But with the, we show the children, we show them faces, we show them, with clearly depicting specific emotions, and I found that you show a grade 4 class and they get them all right. You show a grade 6 class, they get most of them right. As you get older, the children, the students here seem to be getting, and I say worse, but they're just not as acutely connected to it. And I don't know what that means, and I don't know what I can do about it, but it's something that I've noted. It's very anecdotal, but it's been something neat.
Yeah, so even young children are already able to read those emotions from your experience.
That's it. I think that they have to be able to, because they can't, maybe have as in-depth a conversation with an adult or with someone walking down the street as you and I could. So they have to be keenly aware of what's going on around them, and those are some real easy markers to latch on to if you have the capacity for empathy. Is a frowny face means sad. I can figure out what to say and what to do next accordingly.
So are you seeing like a full curriculum from, let's say, first grade through, I don't know what grades you have there, 6 or 12, that it's like a building process for empathy, or is this like just one program that kind of goes into that you use in all grades, or how does that kind of work?
Yeah, so we've, and I keep using the grade 4s as an example, because grade 4 is as low as we go with the Empathy Factory, and that's simply because, before age 7 and 8, you need to learn empathy entirely differently. It certainly, I believe, can be taught, but it's taught differently. So we're focusing on, grade 4s, which are roughly 10-year-olds here. I imagine it's similar. To grade 12s, which are 17 and 8-year-olds, and that's when they're off to university now. So we'll teach the elementary or the primary school kids a little bit differently than the junior high or middle school kids. But the concepts are more or less the same. Like your 4 building blocks of empathy. Those we would use the same format, but presented a little bit differently, a little more grown up and sophisticated for the grade 9s versus the grade 4s. And then actually for the high school students, we offer an entirely different program. We still talk about empathy and we still learn it and we still extend our empathy, but what we get them to do differently than the younger grades, where they'll do a fundraiser or they'll do an advocacy campaign or something like that. The high school students actually start a social enterprise. So they identify a problem that means something to them. So there's too much obesity going on. That's the problem. How can I solve it? Here's my idea for an enterprise. And so we then mentor the students through their enterprise. So it's similar format, but just kind of on a different level. And long term for us, certainly we do want to get the students when they're in kindergarten and primary and grade 1 and grade 2 and get them from the beginning. But that will just, it's kind of out of our focus right now, based on, again, just, how few resources we have.
Yeah, so you're really looking at kind of the empathy as a stepping stone to being social entrepreneurs in a way, it sounds like. Maybe that comes from your own personality. It sounds like you have sort of an entrepreneurial bend to you.
Yes, which Stephanie, my fiance, would tell you can get kind of annoying. I've got the new idea for a business every day, or a social enterprise every day. So I get a little catharsis, I guess, in working with these students, because I am a very entrepreneurial person myself, and I guess to a degree the Empathy Factory is a social enterprise, and I just think that it's a great way for a student or someone who's thinking, what the heck am I going to do next, to be able to give back every day. So every email I send, every phone call I have, every single one, I know I'm helping someone. I'm not working for the phone company or something where sometimes I'm helping people, but sometimes I'm just making money for the phone company. So I can feel really good about everything I do every minute of every day, which is just really rewarding. And look, I'm hopefully helping and inspiring some children along the way. So that's kind of my take on it, and hopefully we will inspire some kids to start their own social enterprises.
Great. Well, I have an entrepreneurial bend too, so I appreciate that and think it's important. Um, I like to look at metaphors, and empathy is often described as a metaphor of standing in someone else's shoes, looking through someone else's eyes. And I ask people, well, what's your personal metaphor? If you don't use those common metaphors, what is empathy like for you? If it was like a piece of land or an animal or just anything like that, what is empathy like?
That's interesting. I'm usually pretty good at stuff like this, Edwin, but on the spot, I can't think of anything. I mean, I do talk about and it's really easy for children to understand. Putting yourself in someone else's shoes or walking a mile in someone else's shoes. Stephanie and I, well, my stepdaughter, so Stephanie's daughter, the eldest, she has two who are 10 and 12 right now. Sarah, so the eldest, she's doing a project that she's working on where she's actually recruiting some of her friends, and they're going to spend a few hours of a day or maybe a day putting themselves quite literally, I suspect, in someone else's shoes. So Sarah thinks, why don't we spend a day in a wheelchair? We're going to have to find someone to push us around, and when they're not around, we're going to have to wheel ourselves. We're going to have to figure out how to manage the stairs and this and that. So then, and then write a little reflection on it. And then the next day, why don't I wear a blindfold the whole day, and I'll see what it's like to be blind. I'll be deaf, and I'll wear one of those pregnant empathy bellies, and I'll pretend to be, so I mean, putting yourself into someone else's shoes is a great metaphor, as you said, but it's really experiencing what they experience. I always try to use a lot of stories. I think that the children can really relate to the stories I tell, and try to bring everything back to a common point and theme. But I don't have any, again, off the top of my head.
Well, I can share a metaphor. My metaphor is that empathy is like a cornucopia. So each of us is, like a cornucopia is the horn of plenty. There's all these feelings, emotions that comes out of each of us. And that empathy is really where we get to share that cornucopia with each other. So it's like two cornucopias coming together, and all the the wonderful fruits and vegetables and wonderful things that come out of the cornucopia kind of get shared in one common stream. So
that's a good one. I like that.
That's one metaphor. So. And I've asked a lot of people about the metaphors, and it's amazing that people really come up with a lot of different metaphors. It's like just the creativity of people, and sometimes being I understand being on the spot. It's like it takes a little bit to. Well, we could say if empathy was an animal, what kind of animal would it be?
Oh, empathy was an animal. I feel like this is a game show suddenly. If empathy were an animal, well, I tell you, I think I'd have to say a cat, and maybe because I'm not very good with animals, but I think extremely good with cats. Maybe tooting my own horn though, but I think my 3 cats here would agree. There's just something about a cat where they. I get a little emotional thinking about cats and how wonderful and beautiful that they can be, but just the way they act and react to the people around them. And I don't know. This is never had to put this into words, but that if I can just say cat and maybe leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Am I off the hook for that?
Yeah, that's. I just wanted to have a success here, just a successful metaphor, and I think we got it. I didn't want to leave you.
That's good.
I didn't want to leave you without a metaphor. So
it will be my commitment, though. You'll get an email from me when I get a little chance to think about it, and I'll come up with something a little more clever.
Okay,
that's my commitment.
Oh, great. Yeah, I was at our university here, University of California at Berkeley. I taught a workshop there and had all the students draw metaphors, and it was really a lot of fun. Getting all those different because each one kind of sheds a different light, you know, on the aspect of empathy, and it's just a different way of kind of looking at it. So it's kind of more the artistic way, and I think that's an important part too of exploring
Absolutely.
empathy.
And it's neat too. You know, you know, if you had 20 students, you'd probably get 20 different metaphors,
Yeah.
and you get to see how they see it, and it's a real a neat reflection of what you're teaching. In fact, you know, empathy is, you know, the ability to see something from someone else's perspective. You know, something that you may never have thought of, but you know, that brain over there works way different, and it responds differently to different questions and stimuli, and has had different experiences in life. You know, so it's a really good teaching point right there. So it's really interesting. You know, of course you would get 20 different, you know, different metaphors. So that's
Yeah.
neat too.
It's kind of that perspective taking aspect, which I think you're probably using too. It's like if you have an event, like why is this person doing what they're doing? And then if you asked all the students, they all have a different reason why that person is acting the way they're acting. And there you have empathy in the middle of the room. It's like, what does empathy look like? And it's all these different perspectives that people have. It's quite interesting,
Absolutely.
and being able to share that through empathy. Um, well, okay. Is there any kind of aspects of empathy that you really think that we haven't covered that's, you know, really important that we should you know, maybe look at?
Well, I would take an opportunity to share one of the projects that's happening right now.
Right.
That I guess we're just in the initial stages, but it's happening, and it's a really good reflection of how a young man learned empathy and applied it immediately, and then again further took it and made a social enterprise out of it. So my personal story kind of all dates back to, you know, 7 or 8 years ago. I found that I have a chronic liver disease. So the doctors basically said to me, they said, Blair, you're going to need a liver transplant someday. You know, no two ways about it. And I thought, okay, well that's really good. And looked into some of the statistics, and they're pretty scary. So, and I was telling this young man about it. His name is Mark, and he's a grade 12 student here in Nova Scotia. I was telling him about it. I said, you know, if I get the transplant, then it's an 80% chance of success. And he says, oh, well, that's really good. And I said, it's really good, but you know, not to be negative, but I sometimes worry about the 20%, you know. And then I said, you know, did you know that 30% of Canadians don't get or Canadians who are waiting for an organ, they don't get that organ that they need. So he said, oh, geez, they end up dying? Yeah, they end up dying. So 30%. And then I said, you know, we end up losing a lot of organs because, you know, people, and I don't know, and I won't say that this is the same where you're at, Edwin, but here in Canada, if you sign your donor card, and you die and you're under the right circumstances to actually give your organs, your next of kin, whether that's your spouse or your mother, your father, or whatever, has the right to say, no, we don't believe in that. We don't think so. Or, you know, Blair didn't really make it clear that he wanted to be a donor to me, so let's say no. So we lose a lot of organs that way. You know, there was a study that I was reading that said that if you know, you have that conversation. So if Edwin, you're to talk to your mother or your wife or, you know, whomever your next of kin is, and say, I am a donor, and it means a lot to me. Please respect those wishes. If you have that conversation with them intentionally, their chances of then saying yes under those circumstances would go way up to almost 100%. So Mark heard these stats, and Mark said, you know, that's terrible, Blair. That's awful. What can we do? You know, so we got to talking, and you know, we decided that we would come up with a campaign called Phone Home and Save a Life. You can find that on the website, but basically Phone Home Save a Life is, as Mark said, you know, we're going to go to every university in Canada, and there's 92 of them, so it's a lofty goal, but we're going to go to every university in Canada. We're going to set up events where students who are passing by, they can come and they can actually, we'll supply the phone and all the information they'll need about organ donation, and we'll give them the opportunity to phone home, talk to their parents, and maybe ultimately save a life. So it's a pretty ingenious little, you know, idea, and certainly bold to think that he could do it. But I absolutely know that he can, and we've had lots and lots of different schools sign up already. So we're good to go in that respect. So it's just really neat how you know, basically giving someone the opportunity to learn about empathy, and then encouraging them or challenging them, or you know, giving them the opportunity to give back. Say, here, what can you do? Is oftentimes all of these children need, all these kids need to make a huge difference. So you know, with our fingers are crossed, but I think Mark's going to have a huge impact on a lot of people's lives, and all because he said, you know, Blair, that's really bad. Those statistics are pretty terrible. You know, what can I do? Let's figure something out. You know, by empathy, he was motivated by his empathy for my situation and situation of others like me, to come up with this great idea. And that's what I get to see every day. So, you know, I'm really blessed. I'm really very lucky to be able to go in to see children at all different levels and ages and so on, having an effect, attaching themselves to the concept of empathy and applying it immediately to life and everything around them. So it's pretty neat stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sounds very personally rewarding for you.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I've not done anything in my life, certainly that even comes close in terms of personal and intrinsic rewards. You know, the reason I got into not-for-profit after university was because I took a look at myself and I said, holy smokes, I'm 23 or 24 years old and I've never volunteered a day in my life. And then I committed to doing something good so that my legacy would be a positive one, and realized, holy smokes, you know, this feels really good to give back and just to do something for someone else. And, you know, so that's kind of where it all stemmed from. And this has been the most rewarding year of my life, most exciting, certainly.
Well, I'm very grateful for the work that you're doing, and you know, spreading the word of empathy and fostering and nurturing the empathy there. And I hope it keeps expanding, and that we can keep working together and really transform society and raise the whole level of empathy together. And
I think that we can. I think that you're absolutely right that we should keep at it. It's not always the easiest task, but we should keep at it, and we can make a difference. You're absolutely right there, Edwin.
Well, thank you so much for doing the interview and sharing your stories and your project, your Empathy Factory work. And you know, we can continue this dialogue at another point in time as well. So.
Absolutely. The magic of the internet. You can find me anytime, and just pop me a message or an email or something, Edwin. And I just want to quickly return the thanks. Certainly, you know, not just for asking me and giving me the opportunity to speak to you, but for everything that you're doing. You know, it's pretty special, and you know, so we appreciate it up here in the East Coast of Canada.
See the world through other people's eyes. Now, empathy is a quality of character that can change the world.